Good afternoon and welcome to our blog on the themes of John's Gospel, and we're continuing with the theme of spirituality. And I've gone on a road trip today. I'm in Congsbury Church, which is a nice change of scenery. I had to go and do some work in the office, so I thought I'd pop over here to do my blog. So yesterday, Ian spoke to us about Ezekiel and Revelation, the prophecy of God refreshing the world with his living water. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, I'd highly recommend the Bible Project video on holiness. I think Matt posted it with the hymns and songs list a couple of weeks ago. It picks up this image, especially as seen from the perspective of Jesus being the fulfillment of this prophecy. And today we're picking up the image with the fulfillment of that prophecy in another image. The living water flows out of the temple in Ezekiel 47, and Jesus is that living water. But today we're looking at Jesus as the new temple, looking at John chapter 2, verses 13 to 22, the story of Jesus cleansing the temple courts. Now, Matt spoke to us about this story way back in the very first blog on the themes in the Gospel of John, and looked at how this act was a sign pointing to Jesus as the Messiah. Now, it's a very famous story appearing in all 4 canonical Gospels, yet it appears much earlier in John than in the Synoptic Gospels. There has been much debate over why this might be. This event clearly happens right at the beginning of Jesus' 3-year ministry in John, immediately after his first miracle, turning water into wine. Yet in the other Gospels, it is placed near the end of his ministry, not long before his arrest. Could it in fact be that he cleared the temple on 2 separate occasions? Perhaps. Or is it the same event, but John, having spent longer before writing his Gospel, had time to think carefully about its structure and move this incident earlier to better frame the story, to show that Jesus' earthly ministry both began and ended at Passover, to show the corruption of the current system and Jesus' rejection of it highlighted at the beginning, paralleled with the Jewish leaders' rejection of Jesus highlighted toward the end. Or, as we're looking at today, John places the clearing of the temple courts so early in his Gospel to show that Jesus has been sent to become the new temple, and therefore the physical building itself becomes obsolete. By driving out the moneylenders and animals, Jesus is clearing the way for the new temple, himself, one not tainted by money, greed, or power. The Jews asked Jesus for a sign to show what authority he has to drive the people from the temple, and Jesus replies, "Destroy this temple, and I will raise it again in 3 days." Now, if someone came into one of our churches and started whipping people and then said he could rebuild the church in 3 days, we may very well have the same response as the Pharisees. It's quite an outlandish statement. The temple at that point had taken 43 years to build. The church I'm in right now has been standing for over 800 years. But that was the point. Jesus wasn't referring to the physical building, but to himself. It's also worth noting that by the time John completed his Gospel, believed to be somewhere between 90 and 100 AD, the Romans had already destroyed the Second Temple in Jerusalem in 70 AD, as had indeed been prophesied. So John was clearly showing that though the physical temple was no more, the temple within Christ was very much with us. John goes on to explain that it was not until after his resurrection that the disciples truly understood this message, And as John also points out, the scriptures, the stories of prophecy from the Old Testament that the disciples would have known by heart, Jesus was the fulfillment of these as the promised Messiah. His body, the temple, was destroyed, and 3 days later, he was raised from death, rebuilt. God, Jesus, therefore, rebuilt the temple in 3 days, just as he said. Thank you. I'll see you all again.